Dad Hat Entertainment News and Reviews podcast, where we'll discuss the world of modern entertainment media, television, video games, and movies. I am your host, Sean Fontaine, along with co-host Jessie Skillings.
Hey there.
And Derek Lloyd.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, so everyone's been down with some kind of bug recently, and I'm the only one with 2 functioning eyes today.
Yep. It's not a pretty sight over here at the Lloyd residence.
No, over here either.
Well, between the both of you have a complete set of functioning eyes.
That's right. That's right.
That's true. Well, no, not really.
Yeah,
you
we
both
both
have
the same eye, right? We're both just staring out of the one good left eye.
The pussy oozeness of the other one is just so appealing.
Yeah.
Very attractive.
Let's spend the first few minutes just describing the conditions. Everybody want to hear that?
I think everyone's interested. Maybe we can get you guys on an episode of Dr. Pimple Popper.
Yeah, right.
Oh, God.
Well, anyway, we're getting on a bad sidetrack here. Let's switch back. So now we're only a few days away from the Oscars. I'll just mention that really quick. We're probably going to be posting this episode after the Oscars, but just scheduling wise, it works out that we're doing the episode early. So we still don't know, who the winners are yet.
1917.
Well, I'm sorry. Was that? I thought I heard something there.
That's my prediction. 1917 is going to win Best Picture, even though it probably shouldn't. I think it's going to. It was good. I loved it. Obviously, I reviewed it in the past one, but I think picking the Best Picture, it probably should be something else. We'll see if I'm eating crap when this podcast goes live, because it already would have played, right? We already
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, is the one that you're reviewing today in the running for Best Picture?
It is not. It is not. Too weird for a Best Picture.
Well, we will get into that, I guess, in your segment, but...
Yes.
All right. Actually, today's episode is another almost fully themed episode. Jessie's going to be discussing the show The Witcher on Netflix, and I have recently delved into The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt video game. So we almost had a full thing going. We had a few suggestions for Derek, but he didn't take.
Is the game a little weird?
Yeah, maybe.
Is the show a little weird?
I mean, it's supernatural-like.
All right, so today's theme is weird, because the movie I'm reviewing is weird.
We're covering a lot of weird stuff today.
There we go.
But before we get into that, just really quick, I want to thank again any of our current Patreons for your support. We really appreciate it. If you'd like to become a Patreon supporter of the show, it only takes $1 to get started to be a Patreon, and you can do that at www.patreon.com/dadhatnewsandreviews. And I just want to take a second to talk about our podcasting host website, Buzzsprout. Have you wanted to start your own podcast but just weren't sure where or how to begin? Join over 100,000 podcasters like us already using Buzzsprout to get their message out to the world. The team at Buzzsprout is passionate about helping you succeed. They supply all the tools you need to get you up and running and sharing your message to listeners on all the major podcast directories, like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and more. You can start with some gear that you already have, like a smartphone recorder and a quiet space. If you want to upgrade, Buzzsprout has tons of guides to help you find the right equipment at the right price. At Dad Hat, we did quite a bit of research before landing on Buzzsprout to use as our hosting service, and after using it for a while now, we've come to realize that it was the best choice by far. You'll get a great-looking podcast website, audio players that you can drop into other websites, detailed analytics to see how people are listening, tools to promote your episodes, tips and training videos, and more. Following the link in the show notes lets Buzzsprout know we sent you, get you a $20 Amazon gift card if you sign up for a paid plan, and help support our show. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast. If you'd like to take some sponsor time on our show, you can contact us at dadhatnewsandreviews@gmail.com. Also, I want to mention really quick, if you want to support the show, there's another way you can do that now by purchasing some cool merchandise from our Dad Hat merch outpost that is through Teespring. I've just set that up, and it is available through our Facebook page. I will get the link for the actual Teespring storefront, and I'll post that in the description of the show below. All right. All that aside, I think I am going to bring up our news story. It caught my eye this week. This was on IGN's website. The Complex is an interactive sci-fi movie that tracks your every decision. So basically, it's a interactive live-action movie that they're developing. Let's see the first little bit of information here. Wales Interactive, the publisher behind live-action video games such as Late Shift, has announced a Complex, its latest project in the realms of interactive live-action movies. Did you guys have a chance to take a look at this real quick?
Yeah, I read through it quickly, yeah.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that concept?
I think it sounds it sounds neat. Sounds a little creepy though, honestly. It takes on a different feel for me than like those choose your own adventure books or something, because it's more immersive, I guess. I don't know. It sounds interesting.
I'm interested in it. Reading about it though, it's one of those things that the proof needs to be in the pudding, right? Like you can say all this stuff, but until you actually do it, I don't know that it it could be good, it could be bad.
Right.
It really
it's all
depends.
in the execution, basically.
Yeah. I mean, I've it's not exactly like this, but it did remind me of. There's this thing in this place down in Disney World. It's called Disney Springs. It's like a separate. It's almost like a little park into itself, but it's more of like a shopping plaza, and they have like lots of entertainment-based things there. There's a movie theater and all that. And one of the things they have is a place called The Void. It's like its own little business within there. Have you guys heard of that?
Mm-mm.
There's
No.
an interactive Star Wars experience there. So you go in and you get briefed. It reminds me of like what it feels like when you go to play paintball. They kind of give you like a briefing room, and they usually will like have you gear up or whatever, test the velocity of your gun's speed and all that. It's like that, but they have you putting on this like an armored vest of some kind that it's all like VR stuff. And then you get equipped with a particular headset, obviously, because you're going into a VR environment, but it feels like you're getting suited up for like war. They have you getting dressed up like you're I think the theme of it is you're a rebel soldier who's going in disguise as a stormtrooper. So all the stuff that you're putting on, it's like you're getting dressed up into a stormtrooper suit. And it's a whole VR experience that I was very doubtful of how good it was going to be, and it's unbelievable how good it is.
Really?
Yeah. You haven't heard of this yet?
No, not at all.
I mean, it's weird. It's like I actually think it's like worth a trip to Florida in and of itself. It's like you have like a gun, and when you fire it, you see the laser come out in VR, and if you shoot at the wall, it will damage the wall. And like there are other stormtroopers that will pop up at you, and you have to shoot at them. There's like one point where the doors open up into like a lava environment, and you feel the heat from the room as you come out. You're walking along like, in typical Star Wars fashion along these like thin catwalks, and like, you feel like you're losing your balance. And of course you sneak a peek into the real room, right? Like you lift up your thing and you're like, I'm just walking on a floor here, but it looks like you're walking across a catwalk over a lava pit. You get at one point where you're on an elevator and you're standing on this thing that kind of jostles you, but it's really, you're walking from room to room through this like series of environments. And what's crazy is you often can reach out and touch a thing. So there's a point where there's like an R2 unit, and it's like you look down in the VR and it's beeping at you, and you reach out with your hand and it's there. It's actually there. There's even a point where, this is a slight spoiler, Vader will make an appearance, and he will like force crush the gun that's in your hand, and the gun actually sort of like changes its shape in your hand while you're holding it. It's unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
So if you ever get down there, you've got to do it. It's again, the place is called The Void, and I think it's the name of the Star Wars thing is Secrets of the Empire. They have another one you can select too. It's like a Monsters Inc. one or Toy Story.
Oh, so they change the
something.
themes of each one?
Well, it hasn't really changed. It's been this for a long time because it's so. I'm sure they will eventually change it, but it's really in depth, so it isn't something that they can change on the fly. They built it to fit the environment or whatever. So I think it would be a big deal to change it. But they do have two options. There's one for younger kids that this might be too intense for, and it's more cartoony. Mm-hmm. I did not do that one, but we did the Star Wars one twice. So anyway, this story reminded me of that in some way.
So this obviously looks like it's a lot less immersive. Like you're going to be playing it on a game console, so you'll obviously be sitting in your living room and stuff. And
right.
I'm wondering if the inputs are going to be just through a controller, or if they have a voice activated way to interact that might make it a little more immersive, like you could actually say things to the characters.
Right.
That would be interesting. But I'm wondering, is there any way that you'd see this sort of thing developing into like an actual theater style thing? I mean, they really couldn't because you have so many people, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine they do it like a theater thing. I could see it being like something what I was describing, where there's like these venues that you go to that are specifically tied to, VR experiences that change or get added to over time. I mean, in an ideal world, that's probably one you'd get in and get hooked up to whatever you're doing and then select the environment you want to enter, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. I could see that being something that the future might hold, like entertainment-based places. As Amazon slowly takes over the world of retail, I imagine there's going to be a lot of openings for, businesses it's going to have to go to entertainment, that's sort of where I think business is going to have to, the model will have to shift to as time goes on. So I could see this sort of stuff really becoming big.
Yeah, it'd be kind of neat to like maybe have a dedicated void style room in your own house, and it like comes like with maybe these pre-designated dividers that you can set up based on the experience you're playing. So you set them up in the room in certain configurations, and it actually becomes that thing that you're playing.
Who will be the first person in the world to walk out of an open window while they're wearing a VR headset? That's what I want to know.
Oh, goodness.
When you were doing it, did it give you a little bit of vertigo standing on like the catwalks over like the lava and stuff?
I came and describe it. It's unbelievable how much vertigo you have. Like it's a really thin catwalk as you're walking over the lava pit, and there's an elevator you're heading towards, and like there are stormtroopers in front of you that you're supposed to be following, and like you're walking on this catwalk and you are losing your balance, and it's like you sneak a little peek and look out and you're just in a regular room. So my second time through, I'm like, I'm not going to like ruin the experience. The first time I was just curious what the room looked like, so I took a peek. But, it's nuts. There's like a part where a wall gets blown open and you go to step through it, and like it's like a half ruined wall that you have to lift your foot up to step into, and there is a half a wall there that you've got to step over, but it looks more like the Death Star type of thing. If you the reality is it's just a boarded wall or whatever, that like a regular old wall, but when you're looking through the VR, it senses it as something spatial there, and it creates like the depiction of like a ruined, blown open wall.
That is so cool.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's really cool. I mean, there was one point I think, I can't remember if maybe you don't have your weapon to start. I think, because I specifically remember there's one point where you walk into a room and there's nobody telling you what to do. You're really just sort of following the story. It's incredibly well done. And there's a room you walk into and you're like, you look on the wall and it's like an armory. So there's like a selection of guns, like there's 4 on the wall, like in there like hooks, as if it's like an armory where they hang the weapons up. And I remember like walking over to it and be like, are those guns real or just decoration? And I reach out and I pick it up and I'm like, oh, you got, you can actually take this gun. So like I was with my wife and my son. So they grabbed, I'm like, get these guns. So they take their guns. And then as soon as you've got them, you're looking out through this hallway and stormtroopers start, like a laser blast shoots at you, and you like turn around and this stormtrooper's firing at you from another room, and then you have to fire back at them, and it like tracks your laser beams to where they're actually striking, and it's really cool.
What would be a great experience for that? The way you describe it is like an Aliens experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be terrifying.
The door is wide open for like maybe a horror-based one would be amazing. I'd love it. I think that they'd probably get less people signing up for it, but I'd definitely be there for that one.
But you get a lot more YouTube clips of people like screaming their face off. Like
no doubt.
That would be just worth it.
Yep.
Cool. So I think we're going to jump into the first segment. This time I'm going to take the lead and talk about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Witcher 3 is a third-person action RPG developed by and published by a studio called CD Projekt. It's based on a fantasy novel, or series of fantasy novels written by, I want to get the name right, hopefully, Andrzej Sapkowski. I hope that sounds... Did you know
That's as good a guess as mine.
Okay. Andrzej Sapkowski. Its main character is Geralt of Rivia. It's a world which is based heavily on Slavic mythology. It was released on Microsoft Windows, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One back in May of 2015. Since then, 2 expansions were also released, Hearts of Stone and Blood and Wine. I've been playing it on PS4, but it's also available on Xbox Game Pass. For the story, the game is set in a world called The Continent, a fantasy world surrounded by many other parallel worlds and dimensions. Before an event called the Conjunction of the Spheres, only humans existed here. Afterwards, humans, elves, dwarves, monsters, and other creatures all coexist now on the continent. The other thing that didn't exist before but does now is magic. Humans on the continent in this time period basically look down upon all other races as inferior or as monsters. Witchers are formerly humans who have been augmented or mutated by magic. They have been trained from childhood to slay monsters and do so at the behest of humans. However, Witchers don't work for free. They operate similar to a bounty hunters or assassins guild. The Witchers Guild are offered contracts to kill monsters, and a single Witcher is dispatched to deal with the situation. So in the game, you play as the Witcher Geralt of Rivia, also known as the White Wolf. The story begins with you and your Witcher mentor, Vesemir, apparently trying to track down a sorceress and a former love interest of Geralt's by the name of Yennefer of Venneberg. While looking for Yennefer, you are called before the Emperor of the Kingdom of Nilfgaard. His name is Emir var Emrys. Emir tasks Geralt with finding Ciri, his daughter, who disappeared years ago but has recently been seen in several places. Ciri is not just a princess, but the last heir to an ancient elvish bloodline that gives her special and mysterious powers. She disappeared in the first place to escape from the Wild Hunt, a group of spectral warriors led by the king of the Wild Hunt, the elf Eredin, from a parallel dimension. And that's basically the premise of the story, and it goes on from there. So as far as gameplay is concerned, Geralt has a variety of weapons at his disposal, including 2 swords, one steel and one silver. The steel sword is used primarily to kill humans, while the silver sword is more effective against creatures and monsters. There are 2 modes of melee attack. Light attacks are fast but weak, and heavy attacks are slow but strong. Players can block and counter enemy attacks with their swords, but swords have a limited endurance and require regular repair. Beyond that, the style of combat doesn't really change. Your progress for leveling up your fighting ability is actually done by purchasing better weapons, creating oils and potions to augment your gear or yourself temporarily. In addition to physical attacks, Geralt has 5 magical signs that he can use at his disposal. They're called, and again, I hope I don't butcher the pronunciations here, but it's Ard, Axi, Igni, Yrden, and Quen. Ard releases a telekinetic blast, Axi confuses enemies, Igni burns them, Yrden slows them down, and Quen offers players a temporary protective shield. The signs, they use stamina and cannot be used indefinitely. However, as you level up, you earn skill points that can be spent to increase your magic abilities, fighting prowess, crafting skills, health, or stamina. Geralt also has a sort of rage meter that fills when he's in battle, so he can use this to build his rage to fight better in certain situations. Players can also use what are called mutagens to increase Geralt's magic power. Health is restored with meditation, very similar to what you see in Jedi Fallen Order, or consumables such as food and potions. Along the way, you take on various jobs or contracts. Sometimes it's to slay a particular monster, or to protect someone, or other tasks that are too dangerous for regular townsfolk to complete. This mechanic is actually critical to earn experience points that level up your character, as well as giving you a way to earn coin, which you have to use to buy anything you need, such as provisions, herbs, or solutions to make the oils, potions, and materials for crafting. While it definitely has a linear, story-driven narrative, the game is somewhat open-world as well in its design. One of the benefits of this is that scattered throughout the world are the herbs and ingredients that Geralt can collect without having to pay for them. It's also littered with side quests and unexplored areas that may contain hidden treasures. So if you decide that you don't want to fast-track the main storyline, it gives you a lot of options. The crafting system for the weapons, gear, and potions and oils is very elaborate, but it's fun to work with, because you can use some ingredients and materials in many different configurations to make many different things that you need. The AI for the enemies is robust and challenging. The boss battles, at least one that I've reached so far, are well balanced and offer a decent challenge. It also employs a moral compass mechanic where it gives you several options to respond to NPCs in conversation, and this is pretty standard for RPGs at this point. How robust that system is in this game, I haven't really seen yet. I'm still pretty early into the full story and not quite sure how my dialogue choices are affecting the course of the game so far. My overall impression for the game is that for a 5-year-old game, it's definitely one of my new favorites. It's a contender for being in my top 10, and I haven't even finished it yet. Its combat, crafting system, horse riding, and fast travel mechanics, the story, voice acting, and visuals are all really well done. You can tell, though, that it's one of the earlier games in the current generation of consoles as far as visuals, but you can only really mostly see that in the cutscenes and the facial animations. The scenery and the environments are still pretty gorgeous to look at. So my final thoughts on the game, Geralt is one of those characters. He makes you feel like just a total badass. He fears nothing and doesn't take crap from anybody, which is very much like some of these games that I like to play, like Master Chief in Halo or Aloy in Horizon Zero Dawn. Since the game has been out for quite a while, though, it's really a great deal money-wise. The copy of the game I got was $20 at Christmas time. It includes all of the updates and DLCs that have come out since then. It's also part of Xbox Game Pass right now, so again, it's another game that you can technically play for free. I'm actually pretty disappointed that I took this long to play it, because it is super fun, and like I said before, it sits comfortably in my top 10.
Wow, that's pretty big.
Did you, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, a friend of mine had recommended, had said something similar. He was like, I absolutely love this game. He's like, you got to play it. And I talked to him briefly about it, but I didn't go in depth. And I was like, all right, I should definitely try this game because he says it's so good. And I went to look at it, and then, of course, you realize that this is the third one, I believe, right?
Yep.
I think it's, and I'm like, well, I should start at the first one. And I started playing it, and I was like 10 minutes in, I'm like, this game's terrible. Like, I was really, bored. And it was just outdated. It was probably good when it came out back in 2007 or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, well, I'll try the other ones later. I wrongly sort of judged the third one based on the first one, so I haven't got back to it yet, but he said the same thing that you are. He's like, it was one of the best games he's ever played. I think he said it was his favorite game of all time, so I definitely have to get to it.
Yeah, I tend to do the same thing you did. Like, if there's a game that I'm interested in, it's, like a second or third iteration of the series, I like to start in linear order. Like, I'll give the first game a chance usually, so I can just, get the backstory and everything. But I think the way they designed this game in particular is that you can jump right into the third game, and it sort of fills in the blanks that you might be missing if you hadn't played the first two games.
Yeah, that's what I've read since.
And that way you're not being tainted by, the dated graphics and probably the lack of storytelling ability in the first two games, where this one is just like a masterpiece.
Yeah.
And if you love the world of Dungeons and Dragons, this is totally up your alley.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's true. It's fun to even just watch, honestly, because I've watched Kyle play it for hours now. Just
the banter between him and the NPCs is fun, And
yeah, it's
the
definitely
game,
got some comedy in there too.
Is the game very adult in nature? I mean,
it is.
Beyond violence, or
there's nudity, so we can't play it around the kids.
Yeah. It has a romance mechanic. Similar to the Mass Effect series of games, and you can romance characters, and you do get into certain very adult situations. So take that in mind if you were going to let your kids play it or something. But it does get into that adult stuff.
Sure.
Yeah. There was a side quest Kyle was on, and I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "This is why we can't play this around the children."
Yeah.
So.
It's like taking an HBO show and gamifying it.
Yeah, definitely. It's very Game of Thrones feel or something.
Yeah.
So.
I loved it. I mean, I would definitely recommend it. I don't know, did you get to play at all, Jess, or did you just watch?
I didn't. I just watched him play since, he's really into it right now. Mm-hmm. So I figured as long as it's something that I was enjoying watching him play anyway, and for research for the podcast. Mm-hmm. So I'd just die. I'm sure I would. Watching all the stuff he was doing with the different weapons and clothing types and the horseback riding. I was just like, I would never be able to catch on. But it does look like fun.
On a side note, I love that his horse in the game, Roach, is actually in the show too.
Yeah. There's a lot of crossover.
They have a thing called bestiary in the game where like they list as you come across certain creatures in the world, you get information about them, a description, and it actually tells you like ways you can effectively fight them with different kinds of magic or oils or weapons. So that part of it also really makes me feel like it harkens back to when I used to play Dungeons and Dragons and just the monster manual. That I love that kind of stuff where you just have this index of cool monsters to look at,
Yep.
So that's in there. You got to play it, Dirk.
Definitely will.
Why don't we go into your description of the show version of The Witcher, Jessie?
Okay. Well, it seems like from what I've read, it takes place in between games 2 and 3. Is that
It seems like, from what I've seen of the show, that seems like the time frame. It does, the show, I won't get into it because it's your thing, but it looks like it spans a lot of time.
Yeah, it does. So, yeah, that was what I had read, that it comes in between the 2 games. And it's also based off of the fantasy series. They said that they didn't want to do any of the show based directly off the game because they figure people are going to play the game and then they might want to watch the in-between stories in the show. So there's only 1 season so far on Netflix with 8 episodes, but they've confirmed a 2nd season. So I'm not sure if that'll still be in between 2 and 3 or if they'll go kind of beyond the other game, or there's nothing about that online yet that I could find.
That'll be tricky.
Yeah. So, I mean, the story, it's very similar to the game. It follows Geralt, the character there, and he's played by Henry. Is it Cavill or Cavill? Or
I think people say Cavill.
Yeah.
Cavill, okay, of Superman fame there. He's a mutated witcher or monster hunter. And by my understanding of mutated in the Witcher world, I think generally, and maybe Sean, you can confirm this, it means that they can do magic and that they've been through some sort of trial and training as children.
Yeah, from what I've taken from the lore of the game, it's something where like human children are initiated into the Witcher Guild very early, and they're given sort of a magic, like a mix of a potion and training that actually changes their body to give them traits of certain monsters and creatures in the world.
Okay. Yeah, that seems to match up with what I read. So, yeah, trained as children, and then they become like these kind of elite monster hunters. Mm-hmm. And I actually, in all the research I did about this, in reading about the books and stuff, I think I might actually want to check out the books because having watched the show and watched, the game being played, it's actually a pretty interesting world. So I think I might want to read the books, which I guess the first one came out in 1986. So it's been around a while.
Yeah, I like the idea that it's based on like Slavic mythology. Like just that alone sounds interesting.
Yeah, I feel like you don't see a lot of that. So it's definitely a unique world. I mean, it's going to have some of your typical supernatural elements, and like you mentioned, there's elves and stuff like that. But it's definitely interesting.
And I think they one of the things that's interesting is their monsters they have like the typical monsters that you hear of, like dragons and ogres and griffins, but then like it gets into that Slavic mythology where they have different names for things, where I think instead of vampires they call them strigas, and like he actually fights a striga in one of the episodes.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed learning a little bit more about the dryads in there. Mm-hmm. They were pretty interesting people. And the first time I sat down to watch it, I actually couldn't get into it. I think I was doing some other stuff, like maybe writing or crafting, and the guys were really excited to see it and put on the first episode, and it launches right into action. So I was having like a hard time getting into the first episode. And there's also, I don't think, Sean, you and I had discussed if this is like really considered a spoiler, but I guess in case anybody doesn't want anything spoiled about it.
I would have liked to have known this before because it would have made it a lot easier to understand.
That's how I felt too. So like the spoiler, quote unquote, would be that there is some, not time travel, but flashbacks and kind of going back and forth in time in the show. So when I first watched, I think it starts right in the first episode, honestly. They jump into action and then they, kind of show the current stuff and then they go back. But they don't make it very clear that they're going back. Some of the characters look very similar to other characters to me, and I had like a hard time with it. And then when the guys explained that, like, oh no, there's like some, not time jumping, but you know, some storyline there that goes back and forth, it made a lot more sense to me, because I was like, oh, okay, I can keep track of this person here.
Yeah, it doesn't really make it obvious until like episode 3 or 4.
Or 4, yeah, absolutely. So, you know, watching it my second time around, I kind of sat down. I knew that part going in again, and I sat down and actually paid attention this time. So then I was sucked in. So, like I said, I'm totally going to check out the books and everything too.
Cool.
But my absolute favorite part of the show is the Bard character.
Oh my God, he's awesome.
He's amazing. He's comedic relief, and he totally brings in that like buddy comedy feel with The Witcher. So he's a good actor too. I looked up, I guess his name is Joey Beatty, and I didn't recognize anything else he'd been in. He's been in like maybe 15 other things.
But now he's going to be famous for Toss a Coin to Your Witcher.
Yes, which was written for the show, because I did research that too. And it's stuck in my head every day now when I wake up. So,
Nice.
But yeah, it's interesting. You know, the trivia for it said, like I said, it's an adaptation of the books. They're not going to really get into the games too much, except for what falls between. And I haven't finished it yet. I'm on episode 6 or 7, and there's only 8 of them. I definitely give it like a 3.5 so far, because I just don't know if it's going to be like rewatchable yet, but I think it will be. It's pretty good so far.
I'd land on the 3.5 too. Yeah.
So you'll have to check it out, Derek.
I definitely will. Yeah, it's been on my radar. It's at the store. It gets talked about a lot. Everyone's keeps asking me, "Have you seen it yet? Have you seen it yet?" I'm like, "Not yet." Just pressed for time. I'm a little ashamed that I didn't have any of it seen prior to this episode, but it's way.
Well, I mean,
on my
we're all
radar.
dying, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's got some great characters and some really good side characters, and like I said, the Bard is my favorite part. So.
What did you think, Jessie? I was very struck at how, at the beginning of the series at least, how they treated magic and, like, you know, mages and sorcerers. It was very Hogwartsy to me at the beginning. Do you know what I mean?
Do you mean like the stuff with like Yennefer and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting to me because I felt like in some ways they were almost outcasts, but then in other ways they were like elevating them above other people too. So it was a weird take on it, but I liked it.
I thought it was just like the beginning training of the sorcerers and mages was very much like one of the classes they would take at Hogwarts. And I was just like, that's just weird. Like,
yeah, at first, and then it got real dark.
Yeah, it made like this really right turn into like Game of Thrones territory. And I was just like, okay, I'm on board for this. This is cool.
Starts off all friendly and you're at a desk, and then all of a sudden
Snape
not
shows
so
up.
friendly anymore.
Yeah,
the head sorceress is a little Snape-ish. I think Snape is nicer than her, actually.
Nice.
So.
And I guess you would call it, they don't call it anything, but there's like this sort of blood magic that they can practice, and it's pretty brutal. Do you know the scene I'm talking about, Jessie?
Oh, you know what? I actually can't recall that.
Did you see when, you know, the castle was sacked and they took the guy hostage?
Yep.
And then they wanted to find out where the girl was and how they did that. They cut the mother's skin off, and
oh yes, that was intense.
And then the sorcerer ate it, and then they cut his stomach open, and they pulled out his guts, and they're basically reading his guts, and that's how they found out where this person was hiding.
Yeah, it's a little intense.
That's how I want to go.
There you go.
Divine some location through my guts, please.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, it's not one I would watch with the kids for sure. There's there's nudity, there's blood, there's gore, there's some really disgusting scenes. So,
what do you think of his morality as far as Geralt, the character?
I think he's mostly trying to be a good person. I mean, I think he's actually pretty. See, now I'm not gonna be able to think of the word for it. Like, I don't know, old-timey morals. Like,
he's very stoic, but he's also like got a code.
Yeah, he's got his own code. Yes.
Like it's, and but I like how Geralt usually just takes the high road. I guess that's what makes a hero, right? Like, he's able to turn the other cheek.
Mm-hmm.
Like, with great power comes great responsibility.
I'm thinking to myself, what would his Dungeons and Dragons alignment be?
Oh, I think he would be... I don't think he'd be chaotic neutral. I think he's almost like...
He has some good in him?
He does. He's very... I don't know.
He's not chaotic. He's definitely lawful, I would say. He's got a little...
Lawful neutral, maybe?
Yeah, probably lawful neutral is his best description.
Tending towards good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The people he chooses to save are like surprising sometimes, and he does it definitely out of a sense of duty and honor, and yeah.
Sounds like the Mandalorian.
Definitely. Like, he doesn't... Like, he's hired to kill monsters, but, like, usually the people that are hiring him are, like, worse than the monsters, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Geralt and Mando could hang.
They would.
Probably,
They'd be
yeah.
buds.
I think they'd chill.
The production value, I think, was pretty good. There were a few...
I think so.
I don't want to give away too much, but there are certain creatures that, you know, they
Could've
weren't
been
quite
better.
up to, like, Game of Thrones snuff, but...
Yeah, I don't want to give away anything about the show, like too many spoilers about what appears or doesn't, but a couple of the creatures could have been done a little bit better, I feel like. But at the same time, I mean, it is just a TV show. It's not a big production movie or something. So I didn't feel like it took you out of the story too much.
No, definitely not. And the acting definitely overshadows the special effects in this series, I think.
For sure. Yep. I can't wait to finish it, so...
All right, we are going to jump out of the world of The Witcher and into the artsy world of The Lighthouse with Derek.
No less weird, though, for sure. So, yeah, I'm reviewing The Lighthouse. The movie is rated R, well-deserved. It's got like an hour and 49-minute runtime, and it's directed by Robert Eggers, who doesn't have a huge resume yet, but what he does have got lots of love. I don't know have either of you seen the movie The Witch?
No.
The Witch.
Yeah,
No.
another very, very artsy film. I loved that movie. It was really, really well done. Anyway, that's his one other big film that he's done, and he's because of that, he's sort of become a director to watch. You know, he kind of like sort of stormed onto the scene with that first, I guess you can call it a horror movie, and he just got lots of love from a lot of people. It's got a nice big following, and so people were watching to see what his next movie was going to be, and it was The Lighthouse. So he wrote it with his brother Max Eggers, and it basically stars two people. There's a few other appearances from other people, but it's Robert Pattinson, who people probably know from the Twilight Saga, and William Dafoe, who everyone should know. The guy's done over 100 movies. The Lighthouse is a like wild fever dream of a movie. It's definitely a film that I would categorize as not for everyone, but it's definitely for me. It's symbolic, it's metaphorical, it's thoughtful, it's confusing. It's a film that makes you constantly question the trustworthiness of the narrative, and it's weird. The film is shot in black and white with a tight aspect ratio that presents the movie in almost a perfect square. So it's not like a letterbox wide view, widescreen thing. If no matter what you're watching it on, it's going to feel boxy. And all of that has the successful effect of creating this really claustrophobic feeling that keeps every shot feeling like it's boxed in and constrained. The story itself focuses entirely on two men who are working on a remote island in the sea where they operate and maintain a lighthouse. Defoe plays Thomas Wake. He's like this cantankerous caretaker who seems like an old sea captain that's been dislodged from a pirate vessel and marooned on this forlorn island. And Pattinson plays Ephraim Winslow, who has recently arrived to function as Wake's newest assistant. So like the film opens and he's sort of arriving on the island, and we learn that his employment window is 4 weeks long, at the end of which time a ship will come to ferry him back to the mainland. Defoe, as Wake, is this tyrannical guy. Like in his leadership, he's forcing Winslow to perform all the worst duties in the maintenance of the facility, while he himself tends to overnight guardianship of the light itself, and then he sleeps during the day. So The light is, constantly rotating beyond this locked door like a floor gate at the top of the lighthouse tower. And only Wake possesses the key, and he seems to become infuriated any time that Winslow suggests that he be given a chance to monitor the beacon. The only time that Wake seems to lighten his dour mood is when the two of them sit down together for their shared evening meal. Here, Winslow seems unwilling to offer much in the way of conversation, despite all of Wake's attempts to, ply him with alcohol and questions. But slowly, as the film progresses, Wake begins to wear on Winslow, and we start to learn some of the secrets that the two men conceal. And here, in my opinion, is what lies at the heart of the movie itself. It seems to be about secrets, hidden desires, undisclosed truths, and the way that the nature of a relationship can change once the light has illuminated them. The price of knowledge, so to speak. The film blends a variety of themes and mythological allusions into the fabric of the story. There's an undeniable homoeroticism at play, but it seems much less about any sort of building relationship and much more about the buried erotic energy that's constantly building and brewing and boiling underneath the surface of the human mind or the human body. The movie will throw like bizarre imagery at us. And an idol of a mermaid is discovered that will actually manifest into a stranded mer creature. Again, you have to wonder if you can trust the narrative as you're being shown these things. And you also get this increasing sense of madness. And, you can't tell because the narrator is not clear. Is someone going mad? If so, who is going mad? Is this really happening? All that stuff is sort of running through your mind as you watch it. And then there's this theme of the ocean concealing things, right? It's set on this island, so the ocean conceals its own hidden entities that'll be drudged up from the deep on more than one occasion. Sometimes what's drudged up is to sustain the two men. Other times it seems to pollute their union. There's a cistern nearby with a disgusting refuse within it. Obviously, it's it's shot during a time period where you would plop your excrement into a bowl by your bedside and then dump it into this cistern. And of course, all the duties related to the cistern fall to Winslow, which he clearly has great disdain for. Again, you get this sense of secrets being disgorged from the bodies of these two men, being hidden beneath the water. And it's all these really powerful themes if you're the sort of person that's looking for this stuff. And up on high, jutting phallically up from the rocks is this lighthouse beacon that continues to spin, shedding its light to arm ocean travelers with the knowledge of danger looming up beneath the surface, but also as a warning to keep people away. So there's that double meaning there of what the purpose of the lighthouse is. And at a certain point, we'll learn a curious truth about a person's name that makes us further question the truth about that particular character. We'll learn a piece of someone's history that reveals yet more secrets and how those secrets inform the other person's opinion of them. Lies conceal the truth. Truth shifts our perspective. And all the while, the lighthouse beacon continues to turn. So to understand the last shot of the film, you're probably going to have to reach out to internet scholars who know a bit more than you do, like I needed to do. It's very artistic in nature, what you're seeing as your final shot, which I will not spoil. And unless you happen to have an unusual understanding of Greek mythology, I think you'll be left wondering what it means. But as a clue, you might want to, after you see the film, look up the fate of Prometheus. That will probably give you an answer to the riddle there. I really enjoyed spending time with these two fairly repulsive human beings. Getting to know them and their secrets made for an oddly fun, kind of wild ride. And director Robert Eggers certainly knows how to provide a surreal movie-going experience. And that's something I not only appreciate, but I hope to see a lot more of. I'm perplexed on how to rate the film. Once again, I'm I know that I'm sort of in a position of recommendation here. And I really don't think that this movie is something that is enjoyed by anyone. If you're a critic of film, if you love film and that, it's probably a 4 out of 5 star movie. It's so well done. It's unbelievable acting. from both men, and they're both very different in how they are presenting their roles. Defoe is like really, like, again, he's sort of like an old sea captain, so, you know, damn ye, let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow, like that kind of an attitude, you know. Whereas Winslow is like, has this sort of thick New England accent, and he's very quiet and reserved, and definitely, you know, Eggers picked the right actors for this, because it's sort of how I think of Pattinson myself. He seems like a quiet and reserved guy, and Defoe is, I think of this Shakespearean wild, you know, like grand acting style. And interestingly, I sort of like read some of the story about the making of how the film was made, and Defoe and Pattinson actually stated that they barely spoke a word to each other on set, and they were too exhausted to hang out together after all of their days of shooting, because the weather of the actual real life weather conditions, which they used in the film. So there's like lots of like, they didn't have like the wind machines to create rain effects. They actually would take advantage of the horrible weather that was on the, you know, island itself. So they'd have these terrible days of working together, and then they would just retreat to their own little places where they were sleeping while they did the shoot. Defoe was living in a little fisherman cottage in solitude, and Pattinson stayed in like a normal hotel with the rest of the film crew during the shoot. And on the set, I guess when they weren't actually filming together, they would stay separate, wouldn't talk to each other. However, both men have stated that they liked each other very much as soon as they had finished their first real conversation a few months after the shoot. So I thought that was really cool, and I think it helped with, you know, how the movie was sort of acted, you know.
Sounds intense.
Yeah, it is. It is a very intense movie right from the start. I like I said, I think I give it 4 out of 5 stars. I really want to see it again. You know, whether it becomes something that's really, I think I attribute most of that to William Dafoe. He's just really fun to listen to. There's one point, it actually has some levity in the film, that there are some parts that are really funny, and at one point Winslow sort of gives him crap about his cooking, and Defoe as the character of Wake sort of explodes in like a surprisingly outrageous response to this guy giving him crap about his cooking, and he goes into this. I would quote the whole thing if I could, but it's really long. He calls down the best curse in movie history. It's this giant paragraph where he just goes on and on, speaking in like it just sounds like an old pirate giving this really insane curse. Hark, Triton, hark! Below bid the father of the Sea King rise from the depths. And he goes on with this whole thing. You know, it's awesome. It's the best moment. It's my favorite scene in the whole movie. And so yeah, I want to see it again just for Defoe's over the top delivery. And yeah, but the average film goer, I don't think if you're the sort of person that loves Armageddon, and yeah, I have a feeling this might land at a 2 in your book. So
not a summer popcorn flick
let's
here.
Let's not speak down to those of us who like Armageddon. Okay?
Yeah, right.
So you're saying it's up there with Navy SEALs?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. Not to be missed.
Wow, that's sounds like quite the intense
thriller.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely, it's the weirdness of it that I think will turn some people off. You know, that like if people who like their movies sort of delivered with very literal context will be left wondering what this or that means. It's hard to recommend. It's really hard to recommend. If like I said, if you're a huge fan of film and you know, things that are delivered with a lot of metaphor and symbolism, then, you know, check this movie out for sure.
What was it nominated for? I'm trying to remember here. Oh, achievement in cinematography. So does that hit the mark for 100%.
You? 100%. Yeah, absolutely. It's weird. It's an achievement in cinematography under like intentional constraints. You know what I mean? Like he chooses to shoot this thing as like a perfect square or close to a perfect square, and yet we're looking out onto ocean views, and I don't know. It was really well done. I mean, it's clearly a man of great talent that did all of that stuff. So yeah, it absolutely deserves cinematography as its award.
Do you think it'll take it? It's going against The Irishman, Joker, 1917, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
I think 1917 is likely to get it. I think I'd like it to go to this one, but I know in my review of 1917, I expressed why I thought the cinematography in that was incredible, and it's done by Deakins, who's one of the most famous cinematographers of all time, deservedly. So I think it's still likely to go to him. And on top of that, like I've mentioned before, I think 1917 is the kind of movie that the Academy tends to lean towards. You know, they do surprise us some years, and we'll see where it lands. But yeah, it deserves to be in the running, no doubt about it.
Movies like this and like Parasite just completely went over my radar. Like, I had no idea they were out there.
Yep. I mean, this one, I pay close attention to a lot of the independent stuff because it's usually what I gravitate towards as far as what I like the most. So I knew this one was coming. It was one that I wanted to see. It's not a movie that theaters love. So, of course, I didn't get a chance to go to a theater to see it. They want the big blockbusters that bring in tons of people. So you got to kind of go to the second-tier theaters. You know, you might have to drive to Boston to see this one in a small theater, that kind of thing. So I had a feeling I would not get a chance to get it in a theater. But honestly, I wonder, I mean, I'm sure it would have been a cool experience, but there's also something I mentioned about the claustrophobic nature of this that I don't know that a small screen hurts it very much, you know? Like 1917 is a better movie seen in the theater, unquestionably. But this one, I think its smallness isn't hurt by seeing it on a small screen, you know?
So you won't lose anything by seeing it at home versus like a regular theater?
It's probably an argument to be made that it's always better to see in a theater, but I didn't feel any loss there. It wasn't like I was watching it and it was like, oh man, I wish I saw this on the big screen, which does happen with some films.
Or if you do see it on a screen, like, you know, in, like the small theater that used to be in Weymouth, like the dollar cinema.
Yep.
Like a small, like 30-seat thing like that.
It would be fine, definitely. Yep.
Cool. Do they still have that place?
I do think it's still there. The Cameo Theater?
Yeah.
Pretty sure it's still there.
Love that place.
Yeah.
And so cheap.
I did not grow up where you guys did, so I have no idea. But
yeah.
we had like a second-run theater in West Boylston, Mass, so I'd go out there.
Yep. Yeah, a lot of the really cool stuff winds up in those small theaters.
Yeah.
Cool. It'll be interesting to see where Lighthouse lands for as far as Oscars this Sunday.
Yeah, I would imagine there's going to be at least some bit about Dafoe's wild performance, for sure.
Did he even get nominated with anything? I'm trying to see if we...
I don't remember seeing him on any of the lists we looked at, but my memory is awful.
Would you say he's the lead or the supporting?
They're both leads, absolutely, 100%. One is not really at any point any more than the other. I guess I'd lean slightly towards Pattinson's character of Winslow to say that he is our protagonist, I guess, but Dafoe is no less of an actor. He's definitely a lead. Either one of them could have been nominated, and I don't think either were.
No, neither of them were.
Yeah. The director has a great little comment, though. When he was asked to describe the movie, Eggers said that nothing good can happen when two men are trapped alone in a giant phallus. That's great.
That should be on a t-shirt.
It definitely should. Yep.
Anyway, we'll take that as lead into our final thoughts.
Yeah.
Anything you guys want to suggest or recommend for the weekend? Well, it will be too late by the time people hear this, or anything coming up after that.
Yeah, no, I'm sort of like interested to do a recap on where the Oscars landed and talk about some of that stuff on our next podcast.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do a recap.
Yeah.
And we're getting closer to PAX, too.
We are, yep.
I'm getting pretty psyched. I'm going to try and make it for both Friday and Saturday. I'm really trying hard to make that work so I can do half of the weekend there.
We're gonna do some kind of recording at PAX, aren't we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you can get away from the booth.
Yeah, I'll fight away, for sure.
And as long as you guys keep your puss eyes away from me.
Yeah.
All the hugs.
We'll bump elbows.
Right. It'll be like the two-headed thing. You guys will be rubbing your faces on the side of my head like, ah!
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I don't want to think about that. So, anyway, again, I want to thank everyone for listening. Please like, follow, and subscribe on our social media platforms. We would really appreciate any ratings or reviews, especially on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That really helps our show become viewable. And just want to thank the listeners again for your support. Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Damn ye, let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow.
Yay, we got our
Our stupid ending.